afternoon again, everyone. My name is Allison Lucasy Love. I work for the Greater Cleveland Partnership, where we have been very proud to support Mayor Bibb and his team and his vision for redeveloping the North Coast Lakefront. I have a couple of housekeeping things to start with here. First of all, we'd like to make some acknowledgments. Osborne Engineering, James Corner Field Operation, and Murphy Epson have been mega important consultants in this work, and we could not have put on today's event or do all of the work that's been happening for the past 2.5 years without them. I also want to acknowledge NOACA, who donated their street supplies kit, which is also part of ODOT's program that allowed us to demonstrate a 2-scale section of a portion of the boulevard. And thank you to Downtown Cleveland Alliance, who provided so much of the furniture that you're enjoying today. I also would like to bring up 2 interpreters that we have on site, Laura and N. Laura is a Spanish language interpreter, and N is a Chinese language interpreter. It's been very important to us to have an inclusive process, so you'll see a lot of our exhibits have been translated. So I'm going to bring them up here briefly for them to introduce themselves, and if you need that translation, they will be here throughout the duration of the program.
大家下午好，如果需要中文翻译，我们很乐意，非常荣幸为你服务。
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Laura Cancino. Si quieren algún servicio de interpretación al español, voy a estar en esta área para servirlos. Gracias.
Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the mayor of the city of Cleveland, Mayor Justin Bibb.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today to kick off the next phase of the work that our administration has been doing in community with community to reimagine our lakefront for the next 100 plus years. And as I've said often, probably every mayor since Tom Johnson has had a lakefront plan. But over the last 3 years of my administration, we have been working very hard to make sure we see real shovels in the ground to transform our lakefront for the next 100 plus years. And it's funny that we are here today in the Civic Plaza designed by Daniel Burnham. And there's a quote that Burnham has that I think about often as we embark on this bold effort. He once said, "Make no little plans. Make no little plans." I think the vision we've outlined really speaks to Burnham's vision for a world-class lakefront. And as the mayor of this great city, I believe that city planning, urban development should be rooted in the lived experiences of our residents. And one of the things I heard nearly 3 years ago when I was knocking on doors, talking to voters all across the city was they wanted a lakefront that represented our values. So this vision is about equity, this vision is about access, and this vision is about finally making sure we have a lakefront we can all be proud of. Now, I know we made some news over the last couple of days about our favorite football team, the Cleveland Browns. And I want to say this. I know many of us have fond memories and stories of going to Browns games right on our city's lakefront. I remember my pops, who died nearly 7 years ago. He loved 3 things. He loved his sons, he loved being a cop and a firefighter, and he loved Cleveland Browns football. And I want to make sure that we maintain this civic asset, we maintain civic pride, and keep the Browns in the great city of Cleveland, Ohio. So regardless if the Browns stay or not, we will remake our lakefront once and for all, and all of you are a part of making that vision a reality. So with that being said, looking forward to next steps, and I have the distinct pleasure to bring one of my governing partners for the county, Deborah Berry, to the stage. Deb.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today on behalf of County Executive Chris Ronayne to show the county's support for this very important downtown lakefront connection. Both the county executive and I have a long history of lakefront planning. We both worked at City Hall just over 22 years ago when on July 26, 2002, the City of Cleveland kicked off the planning process for Connecting Cleveland, the Waterfront District Plan, which became the framework for connecting our two most valuable resources, our people and our waterfronts. That historic moment marked the first time in over 50 years that the city had engaged the community to discuss what people wanted to see along the lakefront. Having personally participated in over 300 public meetings during that 2.5-year planning process until the plan was adopted in December of 2024, the one thing we heard over and over again was that the people wanted to be connected to the water in a myriad of different ways. The North Coast Connector is one of the most important of those connections to come out of that earlier planning work, and now is the time to refine the details and for you to provide input on what types of attractions you'd like to see when we get to the lakefront. The city, the county, and our other civic partners are more aligned than ever and focused on making sure that all of these connections move forward. Speaking of connections, next Monday, we will be breaking ground on an improved bike and pedestrian connection from East 9th Street to East 55th Street along the North Marginal Road. Yes, clap, this is exciting. With our partners at the city, the Cleveland Metro Parks, NOACA, and others. We're also working closely with all of those partners and many others to create new bike and pedestrian connections over the Cuyahoga River on the underside, the former rail of the Veterans Memorial Bridge. Stay tuned for more information on how to share your thoughts and ideas on what that should look like. And if you're interested, we are also doing additional tours with our friends at Downtown Cleveland, Inc. On the Take a Hike series. You can take a look, and there's tours still coming in August and September. But going back to the North Coast Connector, this is a critical project for the city, the county, and the entire region. And we see it as one of our top priorities to help secure funding, advance the design and construction documents, and continue to engage the community to create opportunities for all. So thank you all for coming today. This is important work, and we're happy to be sharing it and working alongside the city. Thank you very much.
And now it's time for our panel. I'd like to bring up Mordecai Cargill from Third Space Action Lab, who will kick off our panel discussion and introduce our three panelists.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me? All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Hey, that's it. My name is Mordecai Cargill. I'm the co-founder and chief creative officer of Third Space Action Lab. And today I have the privilege of being this panel's honorary concerned citizen. So because I have the mic, I have the privilege of asking my questions first, but make sure that you are thinking about what you want to add to this conversation. So before we dive right in, one of our practices here at Third Space, which is not bound by geography, but Third Space is on the move wherever we go, is a soul check. So by way of opening remarks, I'm going to ask my dear friends here to introduce themselves, to tell us who they are, and to tell us how you want to feel when you arrive at the new and improved North Coast Lakefront. So to my left, we have our incredible planning director, Director Joyce Wong. So I'm going to ask you the question first. So who are you, and how do you want to feel when you arrive at the new and improved North Coast Lakefront?
Thanks, Mordecai. Hi, everybody. My name is Joyce Pan Huang. I'm the Director of City Planning for the City of Cleveland. And I think that question is easy. So my name is Joyce, and so my answer is joy. And I really mean that because I think that being at the water's edge just brings me immense joy. And, connection. I feel connected, and I feel possibility when I see the lakefront in the water. Thanks.
Right on. Give it up for Director Wong. Right on. To her left is Keisha Chambers, the Assistant Director of the Mayor's Office of Capital Projects. So, Keisha, same questions for you. Who are you, and how do you want to feel at the new and improved North Coast Lakefront?
Okay, thanks, Mordecai, coming with the hard questions. But my name is Keisha Chambers, Assistant Director of the Mayor's Office of Capital Projects. I am a Southern girl. I've been in Cleveland now for 23 years, but I was born in Dallas, Texas, lived in Atlanta, Georgia for a while, and transitioned here, and I've embraced it, and I love it. But what I would like to make sure that I continue to have is pride in Cleveland. When I go to other cities and I visit their amenities, I feel like there's opportunities here for us to also adopt many of those amenities. And in most examples, for me, that's lakefront, because I love the water. So if there were opportunities for me to do more at the lake, to go to the lake and experience joy because I am, having a great, scoop of ice cream or, kayaking, I would love to be able to continue to have that pride and build on that pride for Cleveland.
Test. Oh, there it is. Okay, right on. Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have Scott Skinner, the Executive Director of North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation. So, Scott, who are you? And perhaps what does that mean, the title? But also, how do you want to feel when you get to the new and improved North Coast Lakefront?
It's a very good question, and I shouldn't have gone third in this. I think we all spend a lot of time in meetings together, so we've heard each other say all these things before, and joy was going to be mine as well. So I'm the Executive Director of the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation. We'll talk more about it as the panel goes on, but it's an independent nonprofit organization charged with overseeing the master plan development of Cleveland's lakefront. More importantly than what I want to feel, or what I want to feel, and I want other Clevelanders to feel when they access the lakefront, is a sense of belonging and a sense of ownership. We're going to develop a lakefront that drives economic development, that brings folks from all over the region, the country, and the world here. But what is equally, if not more important to me, is that everyday Clevelanders who live in every neighborhood in the city, they feel that the waterfront and the lakefront belongs to them, and they feel a sense of pride and ownership when they go down there.
Beautiful. Give it up for Scott. Awesome. So my comrades here have prepared some brief remarks, and we went a little bit out of order, so I didn't want to skip past just some of the framing. So each of them have been leading distinct pieces of this updated plan. And so I wanted to start with you, Director Wong, about the master planning process. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of setting the context for what was recently released and how did we get here? How did we get to August 5th? Is it August 5th? August 2024.
August 2024. Well, it's been an immense journey since we started last May 2023, and even before that. My role in this project has been to help shepherd the master planning process, and the master planning process really discusses what we're going to do when we get to the lakefront and what are the values and vision that really undergird that master plan. And so I'm actually here because this chapter is coming to a close. So what I'd like to do is actually summarize that chapter, and then Keisha and Scott can talk about the next upcoming few chapters. So like the mayor shared, Lakefront is a huge priority. It's something that our community has wanted to see developed over time. And the first thing we did was make sure that the community voices were part of the process. And what we really wanted to know is, what would really bring you down to the lakefront, as well as what would really help you belong. To your point, Scott, what are the things that build community for us? And we really wanted to be responsive to the community's thoughts here. And so, some of the key questions, that we asked were about shared belonging, about, how they want to look and feel at the lakefront. And what we heard back was several key values. And we start with values because these are the values that are going to continue throughout each chapter of the process. So no matter what, we want to make sure that these values are maintained. So some of those values include being inclusive and being accessible to people of all backgrounds and incomes, and we heard that across the city in many neighborhoods. People wanted more access to nature and outdoor spaces. Folks really felt like there was a sense of respite, of relief coming to the lakefront, as well as enjoying the natural elements with their family members, whether that was through fishing or just looking at the water and enjoying. We wanted to make sure sustainability and climate resiliency was a part of that story. And then also reconnecting with the waterfront. I think we learned a lot about what it means not just to utilize the lakefront as an asset or consume the lakefront, but to really reestablish a restorative relationship with the lakefront. And those are all beautiful values that we want to carry throughout the whole process. So what does that look like? Well, we believe we've been able to incorporate those values into the design process, and we've seen that a few times over the past year. We came to you at what we call 30%. As a very rough draft. We came to you at 60%, and now we're here with you for 90%. And these features include family-friendly play spaces, play areas, open plazas for events, a food hall for small businesses that might be seeking new audiences, and then also direct access to the waterfront. We heard that was critical for this plan. So we've really held the line on making sure that about 60 to 70% of the planning area is truly publicly accessible, right? Any family can come down and enjoy the waterfront. And then we have about 30 to 40% left for that development. And that development will activate the lakefront, have regular residents, and kind of be a grounding foundation for that. So right now, we are wrapping up the master planning process. We are at 90% complete. And if you were to go to the tent over to your right, you would be able to see a copy of that plan, which is mostly a written narrative about those values and the planning efforts, as well as the work behind it. So what's next? I'm certain we'll talk about near-term activations. We want to start now to make sure that the lakefront is active, and then we are going to hear more about the roadway design. And so with that, I'll hand it off to A.B. Chambers.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Director Wong. Yes, that's right. Give it up. So I'm going to ask Keisha a simple question, but it's infinitely loaded. So, Keisha, what is the connector / how are we going to get to this new and improved lakefront?
Right. Well, what is the connector? Yes, truly loaded, but I think I can manage it. When we embarked on this project, we had really two simple goals. One, to connect Cleveland to the lakefront, and two, to make sure that it was an equitable effort, meaning that everybody from the city of Cleveland and beyond could have an opportunity to be at our lakefront, what we call our North Coast. So with those goals leading the effort, we looked at the shoreway and we looked at access to the lakefront, and we realized the barrier was the shoreway, as well as the railroads. If you are standing here and want to walk behind the stadium and be at the lake, that's a 20-minute walk. And Scott walked it and timed it. So you can ask him, but he said it's 20 minutes. So that's pretty far for something that is just right here that you can see over our shoulders. So what we wanted to do was figure out how to better improve that connectivity, and the idea was a land bridge. Now, a land bridge does not allow vehicles, it does not allow any motorized vehicle, but it's for pedestrians, it's for people on bikes, it's for people to leisurely connect to the lake and to feel safe while they're making those connections. So making sure that the bridge, the land bridge, as well as the shoreway is designed in such a way that we are protecting our constituents, providing safe ways to connect to the lake, was very important to us. So I think I explained the land bridge. It's going to start here at Mall C. It'll go all the way over to the lake. It will drop you right at the lake. You will be able to, not literally drop, but you will take stairs down to the lake. You'll be able to sit there and enjoy the sunset. There'll be a lot of programming on the lake. Since it is a land bridge, meaning land, soil. We'll be able to have some landscaping opportunities there. So it'll be a really great experience, very different from just crossing any other bridge that you cross in the city of Cleveland. But one of the other features of this is the shoreway. So we are reassigning the shoreway, as I like to say. It will go from a highway to a boulevard. And a boulevard means it'll be 2 lanes in each direction with the median. So the median is very important, and the 2 lanes are very important because it gives us an opportunity to slow traffic down. And one of the main features that you see on the highway as it is now is that cars can go pretty fast. The speed limit is 55 miles per hour. So we want to have the ability to slow that speed down to about 35 miles per hour at least. So that'll give us an opportunity to also install pedestrian walkways, to install multi-purpose lanes. And this is for pedestrians to use, for bicyclists to use, for parents walking with their children in strollers to use, and to use it in a safe manner. You won't feel threatened, so to say, by vehicles. We'll also have landscaping, planter strips as barriers as well, so you'll feel protected. But also those planting strips, intersections will be included. You'll have an intersection at Erie Side, 15th, 9th, I'm sorry, I missed 9th, as well as a new intersection at 18th. So those intersections will help slow traffic down, and we know that that'll help us accomplish that 35 miles per hour speed limit that we are trying to accomplish. And so as I mentioned before, the connection, the connector is all about making sure that people get to the lake safely. They have defined routes to get to the lake, and when they get there that they will have some amenities and some things to enjoy once they are there.
Beautiful. Thank you, Keisha. And thank you for explaining this to me for like the 100th time, I think, at this point. Scott, so how do you fit into this mix? And how does the Waterfront Development Corporation work?
Yeah.
In addition to like being the person who is the first person fielding a bunch of really difficult questions like the timeline and how do we pay for it, like give us your quick backstory into this project.
Sure. And before I do want to make build on one point from Keisha's words, there are images of all of this. I know right now we're describing plans to you, but there are images of all this. And please, as soon as we're done speaking, go take a look at them over there, as well as a very cool sort of painted street that shows the dimensions of all those pedestrian access points. I should have mentioned this at the start, would be remiss if we didn't say a huge thank you to Allison, Lucchese Love, and the GCP team who put this event together and did just a fantastic job doing it really quickly. So as far as me and my organization, I've been in this role for almost 5 months. Like I mentioned at the top of this, the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation is a nonprofit organization independent of the city, but working in partnership with the city, county, and all the other important stakeholders that we have in downtown and on the lakefront to figure out how to execute, and Mordecai, yes, pay for all of the development and infrastructure work that we want to see. It involves coordinating with a lot of different organization partners, which is something that I enjoy doing. How it started and how it came about was really the city wisely spent some time studying other complicated public-private waterfront projects all across the country. Cincinnati, Seattle, Toronto, in every single one of those successful transformations of a city's waterfront, the one thing that was similar, the common denominator in all of that, was an independent organization focused solely on the execution of some sort of master plan or infrastructure improvement. So the city decided that that would be necessary in this case as well. In terms of funding and timeline, those are all things that we're going to get into, but it really involves and has involved working closely with the city, working closely with GCP, and working closely with my board, who represent business leaders from around the city, as well as all of the anchor institutions that are on the lakefront currently, to come up with a plan for how to actually execute on this. And I do think we're in a unique position right now. The mayor mentioned earlier the number of plans that we've been through thinking about Cleveland's lakefront, but putting this organization in place, putting the downtown TIF district in place, centering this planning process on community engagement, and focusing first on the enabling infrastructure to create access is what makes this time different and is what my organization is taxed with executing on.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So, yes, please give it up for Scott. So, Scott, since you're going to get a bunch of hard questions, I wanted to ask you about the soul and the vibes first. So, what's one of the most exciting features for you, having reviewed the completed plans or the 90% plans? Like, what are you most excited about?
Can I give you two?
Absolutely.
So first, as part of the master plan, there is and we've seen these in Cleveland before, but a really central focus on a food hub or a food hall. And in other cities that I've lived in, other areas of the country that I've lived in, those kind of uses really they are key drivers of equitable economic development. When you have a variety of foods at a variety of different price points and a lot of public space around it, it is a place where a lot of folks from different economic classes can congregate and can all be in the same area together. It also drives economic development. If you look at the data around these sorts of food halls or even grocery stores in general, economic development does occur within a small radius of those at a much faster rate than it does if it is not. I think that's exciting. I think even more importantly, Keisha talked a lot about the connectivity. At least once a month, I have an 18-month-old. We park downtown and we walk down East 9th to get to the waterfront, be it the Great Lakes Science Center, or the Rock Hall, or the North Coast Harbor. It is like playing a dangerous game of Frogger. And what I am excited about is creating an intersection that is signalized that is safe and that feels safe to walk with the family across there.
Beautiful. Right on. So, Keisha, I'm going to work back this way. So, what's the most exciting feature of the master plan to you? I mean, of course, the boulevard is very exciting, but you don't have to just say that. So,
well, I'm going to speak to the process of how we got here. And in my spiel, I left off something, so I'm going to jump in and say it now, if you don't mind. So we've gone through many iterations of what this land bridge and this shoreway should look like. And we looked at 4 different options, so to say. One was to not build anything. One was, just leave it as it is. We looked at putting in a land bridge and not changing the shoreway, putting in the land bridge and changing the shoreway, or putting in the land bridge and just removing the shoreway. So we've done our due diligence, I believe, in looking at a variety of different options that this could be configured. And with the process of going out to the community, to having all of our public engagement events, we teamed them often with the planning master plan effort. We were able to really get some true insights from the community. We were also able to use a very interesting process that looked at the well-being and how what we are doing may impact someone's their well-being, whether it was if they felt safe coming here, why didn't they feel safe, or did coming to the lake, bring any stressors for them, and did they have any concerns that we just don't really uncover as we do our general public engagement. So we just really had a good opportunity to really dive deep into the potential benefits for people, but also to really embrace how they truly feel about a project like this and how their well-being may be impacted. So I thought that was very, very important, what I truly love about this. But as we did this work and as we heard from everyone, that's when we were able to make a very solid decision to choose the alternative that we selected, which was alternative 2A, which was to build the land bridge, but to reassign the boulevard and to put East 9th Street at grade, which means the bridge that you take now to cross East 9th will no longer be there. You'll be able to cross at an actual intersection, which provides us opportunities just to make this a much safer route. So I didn't get to provide that detail, but I felt that was a good segue into it, just to say that the process is what led us to being able to make that decision.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if I could ask a quick follow-up, Keisha, is there any other public input that you need from us, the citizens of Cleveland, in order to keep this moving forward?
Absolutely. We have our website open. We still definitely want to hear your stories. We want to hear your feedback. We aren't doing this alone. We have been lockstep with the Ohio Department of Transportation to make sure that the product that we do execute just follows all the standards for building and taking on such a project. And that process includes making sure that we continue to have engagement with our community. So our website is clevelandnorthcoast.com. We invite people to visit our website regularly for project updates, but also there's opportunities for you to, drop your questions there, and we will definitely make sure we get back.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, Director Wong, I'm going to ask you the same question. So, what are some of the most exciting features of this vision to you?
Absolutely. So while we're on the topic of the connector and the land bridge, I think the curve of the land bridge, the arc shape, is definitely something new. And, it's sort of a departure from Daniel Burnham's sort of straight malls. And I would love to comment on that in terms of like what that arc really brings. And the designers behind this field operations really felt that the arc shape will really bring a dynamic experience, in that it won't be another straightaway towards the lakefront, but every step that you take along the arced land bridge will unveil another view, right? So every view is going to be different as you cross across this land bridge. And when you get to the end, you'll have this, unveiling of the lakefront in full to experience on steps as you go down it, to really have that full experience of sunsets and the water. I think another thing I'd like to add is the porches. It's a small feature in the master plan, but this is something that is very uniquely Cleveland. There's front porches everywhere in our neighborhoods, and we were really inspired by that idea of having kind of a semi-private, semi-public space that you have within your own neighborhood to sort of watch the street and watch time pass. And so part of what we've designed in is our own front porches at the lakefront, and each porch will have its own unique design. We are looking for feedback on what you think those designs should be, but just think about cabanas that your family can kind of enjoy, semi-private, semi-public, especially in a hot day like this, right? We would all love that kind of cover and a chance to enjoy the lakefront and the waterfront.
Right on. Yeah, no, I dressed like a crazy person just to come out here for, who knows? I mean, it might rain.
You look great.
Thank you. Thank you. I was fishing for that compliment, so thank you. No pun intended. So in terms of timeline, as a segue, before we start to open it up, I wanted to ask, I'll start with you, Joyce, and then Scott, you should jump in on this. What will Clevelanders see first? And how soon will we start programming?
Actually, I want to kick it over.
Kick it to Scott?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, from a big picture perspective, I'll let Joyce and Keisha talk about this as well. But we're pursuing a number of federal funding opportunities, which is also something that is unique to this version of a lakefront master plan. That we are actively working with our federal partners to figure out how to finance a lot of the public space and infrastructure work here. Those are very competitive processes that often take a while to secure. We are also about to enter the next phase of civil engineering design that I know Keisha can talk about. But we are advancing plans fairly quickly. At the same time, this is a long-term project. This is not something that's going to happen in 6 or 12 or even 18 months. And Joyce mentioned this earlier, but when we think about the waterfront, even now, it is a public asset. It's owned by the city of Cleveland. We don't want to wait a couple years to start getting folks down there, to start activating that space, and to start helping Clevelanders take a sense of ownership of that space, and also leveraging our phenomenal programming partners that are already down there. Downtown Cleveland Inc. with the activation it does in the North Coast Harbor. Obviously the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Great Lakes Science Center have amazing programs and events. We want to leverage those and keep folks down on the waterfront. So we are, my organization has brought on a group called Street Plans, as well with a couple local partners, to think about what that near-term activation looks like. We're looking to find ways and find reasons to get folks down to the waterfront as soon as the next couple months, and then sustain that over the next few years as we move towards shovels in the ground and actual development. So I would encourage everyone here. We are, soliciting ideas, thoughts, input as well on what we want to see down on that parking lot space north of the stadium. In the meantime, Street Plans has a booth over here. I know they have lots of questions for you all. Would encourage you to stop by there too. So we are moving, both with a long-term view to figure out how to actually execute on all of these different visions, as well as figuring out what we can do in the immediacy.
Beautiful.
if I could add to that, even though certain chapters are closing in the planning process, engagement and feedback continues. So we've talked a lot about that today, but I would see near-term interventions as yet another opportunity for engagement. We're, doing more pop-up style interventions on the lakefront, and all that means is that we want to activate it, and we want to be able to have the chance to shuffle things around and test things out. So as soon as we get things going on the lakefront in the next few months, consider that the next sort of interactive phase of engagement.
Beautiful. Keisha, did you want to add anything?
Yes, for the Lakefront Connector, we are at the end phase of our alternative evaluation report, and so that was the study that we do to lead us to the alternative that we will select for the shoreway. So that's the design parameters that we're going to go with. So as I mentioned before, we will have a boulevard, we will have a land bridge, and we'll have intersections at Erie Side, 15th and 18th, as well as kind of a reroute of the West 3rd and West 9th here. So in order to get us to that, we are ready to enter into our design phase, which will take us to 30%. So we are looking to issue that RFQ this month. We still have some items to kind of go through with ODOT to make sure that we have the wording just the way it needs to be, that we've selected the exact path that we're going to take to get to the construction of the project. But we're looking to have that released in this month. So what that means is we'll be able to begin our preliminary design or 30% design of the land bridge and the roadway, and that should take about 18 months. So once we get that completed, then we transition to final design. So how we actually execute the construction of the project will really determine what the overall timeline is, but we have a very aggressive target of maybe having our construction begin in 2028. So we're very optimistic that we'll be able to at least start a portion of the project at that time, but we don't know exactly how we will roll it out, but that is our goal.
Beautiful, beautiful. So before we open it up to our community here to ask some questions, I wanted to just check and make sure that you all had an opportunity to just share some things that you want to make sure that we don't leave here without hearing. So are there any details or any perhaps complexities or things that you didn't get a chance to drive home that you want to make sure we don't leave without hearing from you? So I'll work in reverse order. Scott, you want to get us started?
Yeah, absolutely. What I want folks to, what their takeaway from this forum to be is, one, we're still soliciting feedback. We want to hear your voices on this project for both what's going to happen immediately and what's going to happen in the long term. And two, we've spent a lot of time talking about the master plan. We're going to spend a lot more time in the next couple years talking about, really detailed infrastructure and civil engineering work. But what I want folks to leave this forum with is that we are making progress. We are working very quickly for the level of ambition that this project represents. And there are a lot of folks, both inside and outside City Hall, that are spending every day thinking about this, working on this, and pushing the ball forward as fast as humanly possible, given the scale of what we're talking about.
Beautiful.
Yeah. We've given you a lot of information, so we want you to know that, as Scott said, we aren't rushing it. We are definitely trying to make sure that we get as much feedback as we can, but we are very excited about this project. We're excited about this opportunity that we now have to connect downtown to the lake. We're very excited about the programming that could potentially be on the lake to just makes Cleveland a better city, one that I can be proud of, because we'll have programming there for everybody to enjoy, to bring back the community that we want to have to establish downtown, and it's a community for everybody and not just for the people that live downtown, but a place where everybody can come and enjoy and understand that this is a part of Cleveland. So as mentioned before, there's opportunities for you to be able to give your feedback, but I hope after today everybody walks away wanting to be a part of this project, and I'm going to leave you with let's build a bridge, y'all. All right?
Hey, I love it.
Let's build a bridge.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think I'll just add with two things. I hope you feel our enthusiasm. I think we need your collective enthusiasm to continue the momentum. So we want to build the excitement. And I think the second thing is just how critically important, just from a big picture level this is. I like to ask folks how much you think of the world's fresh water the Great Lakes is. And it is 25% of the world's fresh water right here in our backyard. That is an incredible amount. If you're thinking about all 5 Great Lakes, 25% of the world's fresh water. And that is really important for our world moving forward and for our region and for our city. And I think the other thing is only 20% of our county has public access right now, right? So that to me says, we need to create more opportunities for people to have that access and to experience all the moments of well-being that you can get just living on a city on the lake. And let's make this our front yard. So.
Right on. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's give it up for our panelists. In just a moment, we're about to do a quick switcheroo. So I'm going to invite Mr. Jeff Epstein, the City of Cleveland's Chief of Integrated Development, to switch seats with me. And I'm coming down into the audience. But before I do, there are some ground rules that I want to establish for this part of the conversation. So the first ground rule is as you're asking a question, make sure you introduce yourself. The second is make sure that your question is actually a question, and be brief so that other people can ask questions as well. Be respectful, which shouldn't be a problem for us groovy, nice Clevelanders, and to the extent possible, assume positive intent. And unfortunately, we won't be able to get to every question, but we have plenty of people around here who can answer your questions and quandaries and observations. So give me 1 second. I'm coming back around. Raise your hand, and I'll bring you the mic. Oh, wow. Okay, here, let me go.
My name is Tom Yablonsky. I actually wear many hats, but I want to ask this one in the spirit. I'm the tour guide for the Take Hike for the last several years on our Lakefront tour. So this question is really 2 questions, but it's from the same spirit. How can we maximize the assets of what we already have here? The one example I would have is the green lawn on Voinovich Park, which looks like it could be a mini Blossom Music Center, but the stage certainly doesn't allow that capacity. And the other is really, because I get asked this a lot on the tour, how will all what we're doing here connect to other assets? I'm thinking mainly Edgewater Park to the west, and the potential of the Cheers project, East 55th, and at the turn of the 20th century, we had 2 of the most magnificent parks in the Great Lakes, Edgewater and Gordon was just ignored by our county engineer when we allowed the freeway system rip through there. So is the plan broad enough that it takes into those connections?
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I can address that. So right now, we're really talking about this geography right behind us, thinking about the North Coast connection from Mall C down to the lakefront here. But, we get asked all the time about the broader lakefront, and that's really hearkening back to the work Debbie Berry did that she talked about back in 2002. That really considered all of the lakefront. And so we are working in conjunction with our partners, with the Metro Parks for Cheers and the design of Gordon Park, which is underway now. There's a lot of community opportunities to give feedback for those 2 projects. And then, of course, Edgewater Beach is just bumping like every weekend, every week, every day. So, part of what we want to see is not just land connections, but also water connections. One of the big missing links that we saw downtown was actually a water access point. So we believe that we'll create new water access points for boaters as well as kayakers. There will be a kayak launch that is planned into the new edge of the waterfront. And so that element is kind of keeping all of those access points in mind.
I mean, I can speak to the first part of your question and leveraging the assets that we have there currently, and how can we do that? I mean, there's amazing assets down there already, right? Like a lot of progress has been made, even in the downtown lakefront so far. We're not there yet. There's a long way to go, but there are great things to do down there already. I think one of the charges of my organization, one of the reasons that the board of my organization was put together so thoughtfully, is to incorporate all of the existing institutional stakeholders down there to make sure that they are aligned with the goals of this organization as we move it forward. A large part of my role goal is to sit at the center of that, work with the Browns, work with the Rock Hall, work with the Great Lakes Science Center, work with Downtown Cleveland Inc. and Cumberland Development to make sure that we are tapping into events, to programs that are there, and we're figuring out how to use those to increase the scale, which benefits everyone, encourage more folks to get down there on a regular basis.
Hey guys, Mark with The Scene. So Joyce, you suggested that we're 90% of the way there. We have 10% to go. Last week, members of the Haslam Group met with about a dozen people from Brook Park, and a source told me that they're really interested in building that village down there in Brook Park. So I'm wondering if they do move, if they confirm that in August that they're moving to Brook Park, what happens to the stadium? Have we decided that yet?
Great question. I'm going to tag team this one with Chief Epstein, and I will say that our plans do include the Browns Stadium. You'll notice in the design that there is inclusion of the Haslam Sports Group. We hope that the Browns continue to be a place where many games are played on the lakefront. However, we know that we need to go back to the community and go through a process in light of the upcoming decision. I'd like to kick it over to Chief Epstein if you have anything to add on that.
I don't have much to add, Joyce, other than to say, we think the Browns are an important part of the lakefront vision, and we believe they belong on Cleveland's North Coast. There's a rich history, tradition in that, and the vision that they've painted for us of what they want to see on the lakefront. When I combine that with all the plans we've been talking about here, it will be one of the most extraordinary places in the state, if not beyond. And if the Browns decide to play elsewhere, we've got another big piece of land to plan, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
All right, thank you. I would like to first off thank you guys for your commitment to working with each other to remodel our lakefront. It's so important. One of the areas that I think has been most stifled, well, let me introduce myself. My name is Jeanette Lloyd. I work in the maritime trades here, and I am representing a pile of charter captains, as well as a lot of folks that work here in the maritime trades. And one of the things that we can collectively say is that a commercial dock that serves, allows small businesses, small charters to operate, so sunset cruises, day sails, fishing charters. We are lacking that in Cleveland. These folks are secretly operating in different marinas and being threatened that they're not allowed there because most of our marinas do not allow commercial operations. Do you have a solution for this problem or any design that you'd be willing to incorporate that would allow for commercial boats to pick up folks that are non-boat owners and giving those non-boat owners access to our lakefront?
Thank you for the question. And interestingly, we recently spoke with the OMTA, which is the Ohio Marine Trades Association, who brought up the very same point. And my honest answer is that we need to continue chewing on that piece of feedback, just in terms of what that means. It probably opens up a whole other question about regulations. But certainly when we did meet with certain boaters, for example, we did talk with Intercity Yacht Club and others, at the very least, we want and we understand the desire to have tie-ups so that there can be access to Lakefront Edge. And I will note, the boating community is really important, and they gave us some insight that we hadn't really thought about, in that, we thought a lot about the view from, let's just say, downtown down to the lakefront, but they really challenged us to think about the view from the lake, looking back to the land, and that is something we have taken to heart. But, I think we should continue the dialogue on that one.
Here you go. Thank you. Hi, thank you all for being here. My name is Brian Adamson, he, him, are my pronouns. I'm professor of law at Case Western Reserve University. I also live in Terminal Tower, and I've been a resident of Cleveland for about 20 years. And my question regards the multimodal transportation hub that's part of the design. Why not the Terminal Tower for Amtrak, Greyhound, and the Cuyahoga Valley Railroad? It's the city core, restaurants and hotels, and it's been very credibly demonstrated by groups such as All Aboard Ohio and blogger Ken Pendergrass that it could be a logistically and an economically viable alternative through adjustment in the red line and the green line and the other tracks, and not much, and there's already significant infrastructure that's already there that can create synergies. For example, as the plan is now, as vision, you will get thousands or hundreds of thousands of people off on the Amtrak here with their bags to then get them into another RTA or another ride share to get them to the core of the city, and that doesn't seem to make sense. And when you also have already infrastructure, and I know that Bedrock has an integral role to play in this, and my question is whether Bedrock has been seriously engaged in repurposing or revitalizing even what has been one of our treasures, the Terminal Tower. And have you engaged Bedrock in those conversations? Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you're speaking our language, the planning language about multimodal transportation. So I appreciate that question very much. You know, it is something that comes up in terms of Terminal Tower and how that is a connecting point. And there's quite a bit of history in terms of how we ended up with Amtrak on the Lakefront and how we ended up with, you know, RTA at the Terminal Tower. I will say that there are some technical challenges getting into Terminal Tower for some of those connections, including the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad. We have been in touch with Bedrock and having ongoing conversations about what that looks like. And, you know, I think that since Amtrak is already on the lakefront and, you know, has a history of that footprint, we're going to continue forward with that conversation around Amtrak at the lakefront, understanding that, you know, RTA would have in our plans a consolidated station. So right now there's a station at East 9th Street and West 3rd Street. Our concept combines those two stations into one at the multimodal station, which hopefully is a quick hop and a skip over to Terminal Tower and the rest of the network. I will also add that GCRTA is getting new trains. So their new trains will actually be able to cross between light and heavy rail. So ideally you would be able to get anywhere from the waterfront line across the city there.
I just want to add one thing, which is both of the, I love the question. And to me, it's a both and, not an either or. But both of these are efforts to create transit-oriented development in Cleveland and create density around transit. And I think Bedrock, that's a critical piece of Bedrock's plan, you know, adding 2,000 residential units and improving the connectivity to the Tower City station, as well as the efforts to grow more Amtrak routes here in the city and increase the number of people who are using transit to get to the lakefront.
Hi, my name is Gilda Malone, and I'm from the West Side. I think of the lake as being a beautiful place. I go to the lake a lot. I enjoy the lake because it helps with my mental clarity. But what I'm concerned about as an activist and an advocate is I heard Scott Kim say that this lake is going to belong and ownership to Clevelanders. Cleveland is a 75%, if not more, population of people of color. So have you thought about, unlike the football field and the baseball field, you're going to help make the lakefront a non-exclusional place? Because that is important. You know, you ask why we have trouble in Cleveland, because you don't include everybody.
Yeah, I can start there, and then Joyce, I think it'd be helpful to talk about, and Keisha, about the community feedback, the community process that we've undertaken at this point. So that is a critical component of all this, right? There's a couple reasons that make it really tough for folks to access the waterfront and access the lakefront. There is actually getting there. When we talk about a multimodal transit hub, when we talk about a land bridge, when we talk about the North Coast Connector and changes to the Shoreway, we're talking about increasing access and the ability of folks to get to the waterfront. The second is, you know, a lot of activities on the waterfront currently are pretty expensive. And what we're talking about as part of our master plan, 60% of that being public public space that is free, that is open to the general public. So those are features. It doesn't get to the underlying issue of feeling a sense of ownership and a sense of involvement. And I think that has to come with continued community outreach. This event right here is the start of a broader community engagement initiative over the next few months. We'll be in every ward in the city. We'll be in ward meetings. We'll be at events. We'll be outside of Dave's markets soliciting feedback from and meeting folks where they're at. And I think that's not sufficient, right? But that is a step to get where we want to be. And I'll let Keisha and Joyce talk about this. I cannot give enough kudos to them for the planning process up to this point to get us here and how inclusive that's been. There's a lot more work to do, absolutely. But we, and I've seen this from the city firsthand, are being very thoughtful of making sure this is an inclusive and open space.
I can jump in, and then I'd love for Keisha to also respond. But I have two thoughts. So starting from 2022, when we really began the effort, we have been asking hard questions along the way of ourselves. So in fall of 2022, we did our first engagement process, and we did a representation check. And what we saw was most of the respondents to the initial survey were, 75% white, wealthier, and kind of regional folks. So what we said was, look, we need to do better, right? And so what we did is we did a lot of halftime adjustments. That's a sports reference, like, you get in the locker room and you say, okay, we need to change up our strategy. We've done that a few times, specifically trying to get the representation check that matches our city, and doing some deeper dives in really underrepresented areas, including Clark, Fulton, and Central, which Keisha can speak more about. I think the second thing that we were very intentional about is exploring the whole history of the Lakefront. And this is something that we actually partnered with Mordecai and others on in terms of looking deeply at the history, right? It's always not a happy history. And, there are moments in our lakefront that represent freedom. So we looked at the Underground Railroad and how Lake Erie kind of was a terminus point all across Ohio. And, can you imagine people kind of getting to Lake Erie and imagining freedom on the other side of the lake? We talked a lot about the Native American communities and their, sort of indigenous trails. Euclid Avenue is actually the first trading trail. So we want to recognize that and include the Native American community today in our planning processes. And then finally, thinking about the communities that did not have access and really being intentional about, hey, what would really help us feel belonging? And, we have a lot of that insight actually in the planning document that's over there, and you're welcome to take a look and tell us if we're on point or not. And I will say that we learned a lot along the way, and we had to do some big checks on ourselves. So thank you for the question.
And I would just add, if you had to ask that question, we haven't done something right, so I would love to talk to you afterwards to see what we can do more. I mean, like she said, we're continuing to make changes. We're continuing to get into the locker room and pivot and make sure that we're reaching the community. So if you have some thoughts that you would love to share on that, I'd love to hear them from you.
Beautiful. So I got the Sandman. It's time to wrap it up. So real quick, give it up for yourself for showing up and not melting out here. Give it up for the panel, Scott Skinner, Keisha Chambers, Director Wong, and Chief Epstein. Thank you for showing up. Allison, back to you.
Thank you, Mordecai. And again, thank you all for being here, for bearing with us in this extreme heat. We have some treats for you. We have free ice cream, first come, first served basis. Again, we had a lot more people register last minute than we had initially planned for, which is awesome. But that is over near Cleveland Water, which is also giving away free water. So please make sure you stay hydrated. Get a free ice cream cone from Trikeable Treats. And there's also a food truck for purchase. Please go around to our community partners. We've got a dozen of them here, important stakeholders on the North Coast Lakefront development. They have a lot of fun giveaways. And then we've got, of course, the Osborne team here, along with the North Coast Connector team from the city of Cleveland to answer all of those remaining questions. Please provide your input. If you don't have time to fill out the survey today, it really is just a quick few-minute survey. But if you don't have time today, scan the QR code, take one of the postcards with you. That survey is available online for the next month or so, and as was mentioned, will be in other places throughout the community to help continue to get feedback on this project. So please visit clevelandnorthcoast.com. If you missed any of today's programming or want to go back and hear what the panelists said, you will be able to hear that recording on clevelandnorthcoast.com. All of the exhibits that you see here for the master plan and the connector are also available. So with that, thank you so much again. Thank you to the panel. Thank you, Mordecai. Thank you, Mayor Bibb and Debbie Berry. And please enjoy the next 90 minutes or so.